Hello and welcome to episode 3 of Just Folks RI. My name is Paula, your host of the Just Folks RI podcast based out of the Beach Rose Studio in Charlestown, Rhode Island. Today's conversation is with Justin Ingram of Just in Time Home Improvements based out of Hope Valley. He serves Charlestown and surrounding areas in South County, and his story is just really inspiring and just an overall good dude. I hope you enjoy. Thanks. I'm excited to talk to you because I think your perspective, I feel like you have a life story that there's like more than meets the eye. And I noticed on your Facebook profile, you have like this quote, which I don't know if it's someone said it or if it's yours, but you wrote, "No personal calamity is so crushing that something true and great can't be made of it." Um, and I love that. And I happen to know that you do amazing work. You started like a business about a year ago. You've done some stuff for the Beach Rose Cafe and Studio. You've done some stuff for my mom's house. You've done some stuff for our house. So I've gotten to see how you work with your people, and it just seems like the people in your orbit are like all pretty good folks. And there's just energy that's just like, yeah, it's not, things feel grounded. I used to do like commercial painting, and I've worked on job sites and stuff before, and it definitely has not always been the case where it feels that way. Um, so I guess if you feel willing, tell me a little bit about like what that quote kind of means to you, and we can kind of just kick it off from there.
Yeah, for sure. So I grew up in Connecticut and I moved to Rhode Island in 2023. So leading up to when I moved out here, I lived in New Haven County, and it was a much different environment than what it's like here in Washington County. I live in Hope Valley, and Richmond is a lot quieter than the places that I'm used to, which is a good thing for me. So yeah, I made some really horrible life decisions a few years ago, and I'm just celebrated 5 years clean and sober, and I've come from a place where I was doing a lot of intravenous drug use and stuff like that, and I really didn't see a way out of that lifestyle. I kind of felt like, this is just the environment that I'm in, and this is my way of life, and I've kind of accepted it. And now I'm 35 years old. So, like, when I made that decision to make a massive life change, I was about 30. And, I kind of just walked out on this step of faith of, I'm either going to get it together now, or I'm just going to accept this as my life. And, when I went and got some help for myself, I then went into like some self-help programs and like read a lot of self-help literature. And I had made some attempts in the past to kind of be like, well, if I make these changes, then things will get better. And they just never did. I really was never all in, kind of, so to speak. So this last time I was like, this is it. I have to pull out all the stops. I have to get connected with my community and the peers around me who have like been where I've been and have come out of it. And so when I reached a year clean, I had met my now wife. I got married this year. So like
Congratulations!
thank you so much.
Yay!
Yeah, I never saw my life transforming into where it is. And just so that quote tying back to that is like, there was a point in my life where I never saw a way out of that way of life. And to wake up, sometimes I'm like, wow, I cannot believe the transformation that has been made. Sometimes, I just look at my life and the people in my life, like you said, the people that I allow access to me and stuff. And I'm just like, wow, what a 180 turn. like this is amazing. I'm so blessed. I'm so lucky because I come from a place where like not a lot of people are able to say what I just said. A lot of them are dead or incarcerated or still using. So yeah, it was just a massive life change that it required. And this year is 1 year since I've launched the business, and people trust me to come in their house and like to do work and like to take deposits and stuff. And my life is just totally transformed, like in such a positive way. So
Wow. That is really intense and beautiful. Like to go through, because there's no way that you're just like in it. If you get to that point, there's no way you're just in it for like a brief period. So I imagine this was a period of your life of some amount. Um, and to dig your heels in and decide like no more. In 2020, I decided not to have any more alcohol. I became like a sober person. And um, it's obviously it's not the same. I'm not trying to compare experiences. They're all unique. But there is something I've also quit nicotine before, and there is something internal that feels different when you know not fucking again. Like you're like not sorry to excuse my language, but it's like we're not doing this anymore. Um and I don't know about you, but it's like this like building like a foundation, which you'd know more about than I do. But you kind of don't realize how much your life can transform because it happens in like layers, like an oil painting or something. Like a wash will happen first, and then these pieces start to come together. And I'd love to hear, I guess, a bit about your oil painting. Like what were some of the first things that you saw changing, and then tell me about some of the things you've got going on. I mean, obviously you just got married, you've got this business, so it's growing.
yeah. So yeah, prior to this attempt at recovery, I had gotten in like kind of backdoored into addiction by a doctor through some pain medications and stuff, and I was abusing them in a really rough way. And so once things progressed from that point, um, once you start doing IV drug use, you're kind of progressed to a point where it's very hard to come out of it. So I had made a lot of attempts, like I said, like therapy and religion and, all these other things. But I was never able to like accumulate anything more than a year. Um, and then so like this last time, like you said, when you just know, and when I checked myself into treatment center, I was like, this is the time I'm getting my 1 year celebration. Like I'm gonna know what it feels like this time to at least have a year. And I had went in there and I weighed like 155 pounds. I mean, I was living off of nutriment shakes and like all these, like I couldn't put down a meal.
So
So
for
I had
anyone who
to.
doesn't know the height of Justin, Justin is a tall person. So what's your height? You where do you stand?
Yeah, I'm 6'6".
Right. So 6'6" at 155. We're not talking about like a 5'4" kind of guy here. So
Right,
not just
right.
got it.
Yeah, my rib cage was totally exposed. I was just so emaciated. My face was sunken in, and I walked into a treatment center saying like, if you guys don't take me in and you turn me away, there's a really good chance that I might die. And so they took me in and they started medicating me and stuff. And a couple weeks go by, I get into a treatment center, and I knew that it was different this time because I was like, this time, no medication, take me off it. And they were like, well, we admire that, but Justin, like, we do that for people because they feel brave and they want to do this, and then they leave when they start feeling the withdrawal symptoms. And I was like, I will sign a document, whatever it takes, just get me off of this stuff. And so they took me off of it in a professional way, the way that they do it with the tapering process and stuff. And so like leading into going into a treatment center, I was already withdrawing. And then in the treatment center, I did another 18 days of withdrawal. And that was kind of like the time that I knew. I was like, okay, I stuck it out. I'm beyond, like, I have no medication in me. Not that there's anything wrong with that. Just for me, the self-help, um, like the assisted medication way was just not working for me. I had tried it in the past. So yeah, I kind of walked out of there saying, I'm scared because I'm vulnerable, but like I'm going to surround myself with people that have my best interest at heart. So I had left New Haven County and I went to New London County. It was a total change of where I had been from. And, so I lived in Norwich, and I had been a carpenter my whole life, but every time I kind of started doing things for myself, I would kind of like pawn my tools and then I'd disappear. And like, this time around, I was like, well, this is my trade. I love doing this. This is what I'm going to invest myself in, and found a really good employer. Um, and, as my recovery progressed, like my girlfriend, my now wife, saw some things in me where she was like, "You are really good at what you do. Like, you should really try to open up something yourself." So I was doing some small handyman jobs in the area, and I landed into this contract where somebody was like, "Hey, I want you to renovate a bathroom," and I was like, "Well, I'm not insured. I don't have a registration," and so I went and took care of the paperwork, and that was it. The business had launched from there. So my career has progressed in many ways. My personal relationships have progressed. When I was living in Norwich, I met my then girlfriend through Hinge, which is a dating app that's designed to be deleted. She lived in she lived in South Kingstown, and I lived in Norwich, and we would meet, and just things evolved, and our relationship has just grown so much. And we got engaged a year and a half ago, so we had 18 months of wedding planning, and November 2nd we got married, and it was just the most beautiful day. It was perfect. So yeah, to say that like my life has made a 180 turn, it's like I'm so blessed. I'm so blessed to be able to say that.
That's incredible. It's like for every like success story like that, it's so many fellow Rhode Island, not just Rhode Islanders, but Americans are dealing with real struggle. And sometimes it does feel like it's, you know, the almost assist like your experience that you talk about where it's maybe helps to have some medications. It's maybe it works for some people, but maybe for many it doesn't. So I imagine it's just really powerful that there is a way, forward. You mentioned that you were a like a carpenter for your whole life. Can you tell me a bit about like young Justin and how you got into your craft?
Yeah, so my uncle is a painter by trade, and I was 16 years old, and I had gotten my first job at McDonald's, and I was doing like part-time hours. I was still in high school and stuff, and I was young and ambitious. And my uncle was saying, "Hey, I have some work available for you on the weekends. I know that you have school and your job going on, but if you want to help out, I can give you some cash." So I was 16 and started slinging a paintbrush and a roller, and by the time I was 23, 22 years old, I being a painter, you're going to bump into carpenters, you're going to bump into electricians and plumbers and stuff. And I saw these guys doing a hardwood floor one time, and I was like, wow, like that looks so cool to be able to like take a belt sander to a hardwood floor, refinish it, stain it, polyurethane. And I said, I think that I want to give that a shot. So it kind of progressed from painting to carpentry and different forms of carpentry. Like I've done some commercial, I've done residential, and just everything from flooring to ceilings to roofs to basements. And I just fell in love with the craft and always wanted to invest in myself and getting new tools and keeping up with the latest trends. Like people, like the trade is constantly evolving, um, which is really cool because it gives me the opportunity to continue my education. I'm not just doing the same thing all the time. I'm learning new stuff all the time. So.
Wow. I love that. I feel like painting is sometimes like the gateway because it's almost like the easiest to get into in some ways. I've had some good I have this one memorable time. I remember I was very detail oriented. Like I was trying to get the like stroke right. And my boss kind of walking by is like, "Hey, don't pet the paint." you know and I use that expression like with employees at my shop, like you don't pet the sandwich, like you put the stuff, put it together. We need not like fiddle, or just be mindful and purposeful about what you're doing, and stay present. It makes me think about other young people these days. If obviously college is can be a path for many, but it feels like the opportunities coming out of college, like unless you're like pre-med, this, that, is it's going to be tough. AI is taking over a lot of things, and we could have a whole conversation about that. But I guess for you, what does getting into a trade mean for like a young man? Because I feel like young men, it's like there's this energy, and it's like almost like fighting energy, or like there's got to be some channeling of everything that a young man has to offer, that's not just like it's too easy to play video games and get high, right? Like, so what is the if there was a call to young people, from your experience, like why get into trades?
Yeah, well, what I would say is if you are going to explore a trade, what I would say is it takes a lot of commitment. Um, there's some contractors out there that have employed me and said, your job is to haul the lumber, pass me a tool, and, make sure that everything is cleaned up at the end of the job site. And I dealt with that for a while and dealing with some employers that didn't really give me the opportunity to learn. And that'll get you kind of familiar with some of the things that are going on a job site. But uh, my recommendation would be is to find an employer that's going to actually take the time to teach you. So for me, like the carpentry was good to come after the painting because now when I put together a door and trim and I put up the crown molding and everything, now I have the experience of the paint to back it up, um, to say, hey, I can finish this for you. You don't have to hire another trade. Or when I'm doing drywall, like when I'm framing, then I can insulate, then I can drywall, I can finish it, prime it, paint it. So what I would say is if you're going to get into the trade, I would do something that you can expand on. Um, I mean, electricians are always in demand, plumbers are always in demand. That takes a trade school and licensing and stuff like that, as opposed to uh, if you want to be a carpenter or painter, you don't necessarily need massive amounts of like certificates or education. But what I would say is get yourself somebody who is good at what they do and who is willing to teach you, because you're not going to make it very far just pushing a broom or handing over tools. And you know just that's really my recommendation to anybody trying to get into a trade or considering it.
What kind of mindset um does someone have to have? Like, are you at the point with just in time home improvement where y- you could see yourself, maybe not yet, but offering some version of an apprenticeship? And I guess in that scenario, what would you be looking for in a young person, whether attitude wise or experience wise? Like, what does one need to kind of to join a competent team?
Yeah, I would say one, willingness to learn. willingness to pay attention and see what's going on because for to have that is in a good attitude is half of the half of what's required in the field. Because you wake up Monday through Friday, you do a 9 to 5 or 8 to 4, and eventually your body's going to feel it. You're going to be moving heavy stuff. You're going to be holding things above your head. You're going to be doing some uncomfortable things. And what I would say is definitely just stick to it. Um,
Mm.
but yeah, I would say for one, a good attitude, willingness to learn, and have some ibuprofen because you're going to be sore.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. Um, I could see it, you, I don't know if partner is the right word, but you work with a lot of other local businesses. Before we started, I mentioned I was like, looks like I know, and we use him at the cafe. It just happened a lot of the relationships you have. We also use like Jake Lavoy for plumbing. A lot of people know him for Charlestown, and then Burke Electric. And these are all like solid people. So when competent people are sussing each other out to figure out, we've got a project and you need to call in other trades, how do you come to like what's the I don't know, do two good men look each other in the eye and just know?
I think for me, a big part of it was looking into recommendations. So, I had seen Berg's name around a lot, especially through the platforms that I use, like Facebook groups and Nextdoor, and same with Jake Lavoy. I think that when it came time for me to need a plumber and an electrician on crew, I kind of had already put that in the back of my head, saying these guys have really good reviews. The community really likes them. People have a lot of great things to say about them. So when it came time where I needed to bring in another trade partner, um, I gave them a shot. And over the last year that I've been in business, I'm so lucky to say I haven't used anyone else for plumbing or electrical. And same with Be Nice Home Solutions. I use them for drafting and design services, and I use them for inspection reports and stuff. So um, the trade partners that I brought in, and including vendors too. Like there's some vendors that have a really good reputation that I've went into their stores and built relationships with them, and they've educated me on their products and stuff like that. So I've been very lucky to kind of walk into these relationships and say, I'm not looking for the cheapest contractor. I'm looking for somebody who can get the job done, show up when they say they're going to, and get it done right without a callback or, a pipe bursting or electrical shortage or something. And I've just been very, very fortunate that I've gotten these relationships.
That is so that's so great. I mean, I feel like too, from the perspective of like the client, you're like, I just want it done, and I remember when your team first showed up, um, and it's always a vulnerable thing when you invite people into your house, right? Because my house is one of those like it can feel a little chaotic. There's a lot of animals, there's some cobwebs. We let the spiders live because they eat other bugs. Like nothing is perfect, but like it's a good home. Like we feel like we love each other. Nothing, but you let someone in and it's got that vulnerable feel to it. And especially you're like, okay, who's going to be coming in and out? And it just was always I won't forget when you guys took out this big like air conditioning unit that was just stuck in our wall and it wasn't even functioning. It was just old and just stuck in there in this weird way. And I had like my little 3-year old who was like, the guys are here, and I was like so fixated on it. And some of your other guys who were working were so nice to him and kind and patient with us. So it felt good to just have that resonance because especially for my little guy Pete, it became something that he talks about. So when he like sees you guys show up, he's like, the guys are here, like what are they doing? And it's just it's a wonderful feeling. And that makes me think of and I think this kind of links in with sobriety, or a theme is just accountability in general is a beautiful component to relationship building in a community. Rhode Island is great for that in some ways because it's so small, and it maybe sometimes can be easy to like burn a bridge or whatever. Just a small town vibe. Sometimes it can be like word gets out, um, and I think I know for me, as you know, with having the cafe and the studio, it encourages me to be a better version of myself, even when maybe I don't feel like it. And that's a good thing because the accountability is out there. And I think that's a beautiful thing. I think for sobriety too, it's like you have to kind of put yourself in a position that's not in what it was before. Um, so what is kind of accountability, I think, how does that resonate with you?
Yeah, so being a registered Rhode Island contractor comes with a lot of responsibility, to first you got to go and take a class where they teach you about ethics and they teach you about your rights as a contractor and they teach you about the client's rights. And, stepping into that and walking into my first contract and shaking someone's hand, like I was extremely nervous because I didn't know how things were going to go. um, so for me, I think that just having a sense of I'm gonna do right by this person. I'm gonna do right by my business. I'm gonna have guys on my team that I know I can trust and that I can put a hammer in their hand and say, I'm gonna work over here. I'm gonna trust you to do this. Um, I've been very lucky to have some really awesome clients. And I've also walked into some estimates where I've had a gut feeling about some clients and say, you know what, I have a feeling that they're going to be a headache and I really don't want to take the risk. So I think my sense of intuition um, has really helped me navigate this field, especially over the last year. As I said, I've been so lucky to have great clients, but being accountable behind, when I'm doing a product, here's my warranty. I stand by my warranty. Um, the guys that I'm bringing on, they are competent in what they're doing. Uh, stuff like that. So I think that for me, it's really just taking the education that I've learned from Rhode Island Builders Association, knowing that they've navigated me into the best uh, of their ability to teach me how to go out there and be a responsible contractor. I think that in itself is for me the best way I can hold myself accountable is through their code of ethics and conducts and just the relationships that I've built with my clients. And a 5-star review will go a long way. Like I always appreciate the recommendations, but I always keep in the back of my head a 1-star review will can sometimes overlook the 55-star reviews that you have. And I've had a couple of them here and there, and what I notice is I don't have to say anything. The community just kind of steps in and they're like, you must have the wrong Justin. Like, this is absolutely inaccurate. So I don't even have to step in and try and defend myself. It's
Hmm.
just, sometimes you just get some of those people that you can never satisfy them and they want to go online and make a ruckus. And the people that I've done work for will automatically just kind of step in and say, "You must have the wrong guy here." So
Totally. I know that so with the cafe, like we've got a bunch of reviews, and they're all most of them are good, but I know that feeling especially when we first opened, we're now kind of in the 3 to 4 year mark, but it's like you really I wouldn't say obsessed about what others thought of you, but it's like how are we landing, with others, and any little ding that you got, you're like, "Oh," like at first like it you haven't felt a sense of weathering the storm, but when you realize that the feedback is for the most part positive, but that there's no way, as human beings, there's no way we can ever bat 100. mistakes happen or chemistry is not right. I remember, someone was very offended. We did not have sugar-free overnight oats. You know, overnight oats, I just didn't think you would. I'm sorry, and you're kind of like, um, so I not sort of I wouldn't. It's not even taking the bait, but like you said, kind of just letting it lie and learning what you can from any experience that you had, or like following your gut is huge. Um, to your point, because I think that we one of the best things about being a business owner is you have this sense of like I am navigating my own sales, and I get the privilege to choose like which seas I enter.
Yeah.
So what kind of was the turning point for you? Because it sounds like you got to work for some great employers. What sort of, we talked about the moment where you're like, I'm sober now. What kind of made you have that same like, I'm going out on my own now. Now's the time as far as your business goes.
So I had a full-time employer, and I had launched a business in December of last year. So this December 10th will be a year. And I knew that it would be way too risky to just transition from I opened my business, here's my 2 weeks notice, I'm leaving. I didn't do it that way. So what I had done was I kind of got my name out there in a way of like, hey, we're taking on weekend jobs, we're taking on some handyman evening jobs. So by the time May had rolled around of this past year, um, we started getting some estimates for some pretty large jobs. And then this summer we had a really big job. So I think it was somewhere in like the 5 month mark of me working for myself that I had just gotten this huge opportunity that landed in my lap where I had to go to my employer and say, listen, it's time, you know. And the awesome thing about that in building relationships is that he supported me in a way of like, I do not want to hold you back. If you need a reference or a recommendation, you can always give my number. And in fact, one of my old colleagues came to my wedding. So, I mean, I had made such awesome relationships with my previous coworkers. And again, he was another employer that was like, I am trusting you to get this job done. Show me what you can do. And that was such a blessing for me because I was, when I made a mistake, it was corrected and it was, no, you want to do it like this. So for the 3 years that I worked for him, I had learned more in that 3 years than I had in 7 years prior to that. Um, so yeah, once some of the bigger contracts started coming in, that's when I was like, I know. And even now today, like we get some contracts that are about 6 figures, but we also don't ignore the calls that we get for like small handyman projects, like, hey, I just need you to replace a doorknob, and a lot of contractors out there are like, oh, that's so beneath me, I will not do that. And for me, it's not so much about the $100 or $50 I'm going to make doing that, but it's like I can build a relationship here. Sometimes I walk in and I just change out a doorknob, and then next thing you know, they're like, "Oh, you do bathroom remodels?" So I don't ignore those small things, and I also have the
Huge.
courage to take on and the bigger contracts too. So
I mean, I think that was my experience. I mean, not to interject, that was my experience with you guys. It's like, start off with some like kind of shelving stuff, and just like some stuff we needed. And then that's like the trust building, where this small exchange where it's like, and I think I remember one of the first times I met you before you left, because I saw your shirt, just in time home improvement. I was like, that's some, you know, uh, I don't know, ballsy marketing, because it's like contractors to be like, I'm going to be on time. It's like, well, you better be on time, like if that's going to be the name of your gig.
yeah.
So it's a cool thing, but yeah, that's how it starts. Is and then you end up like replacing our back deck, and you've done stuff for my folks, you did the bathroom remodel at our house. So like it's a um that's exactly how it works. And I think even no matter what business you're in, I think, I did the Goldman Sachs 10,000 small businesses program, and it's like, maybe someone comes in, it's easier to, they reiterated, it's just common business sense, but it's easier to maintain an existing client and to grow that than to acquire a new one. It takes a lot more effort and time and sometimes money to the acquisition cost of a new one. Once you have a relationship, that's someone who keeps coming again and again. And as a, cafe owner, you think of that as they come in at first for a cup of coffee. Next time they try a muffin. Before you know it, would start out as a $3 transaction becomes 2 days a week, it's 25. And not that you think about people and their like year end contribution to your business, but that's what business is. Each of these clients add to the total and a community is made. So I think it's really admirable um, that still matters to you as those big contracts roll in.
For sure.
Really cool. Um, does your um, and I'm gonna sound so corny saying this. Do you think that your like street smarts from the experiences that you've had in navigating people, um, kind of before you had your own business and sort of in the pre-sober times, helps you be a better leader or talent acquisitioner?
Yeah, yeah. I think that there's been several times where I've walked into an estimate and I walk out saying, if I take this contract, I'm going to be in trouble. And there's been a time or two where I did not listen to that gut feeling, and I said, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to give this one a try. And I should never do that. I should always listen to my gut feeling. Uh, but I think that it's been a learning experience for me, to know how to turn a bad situation into a good one. I mean, there's been times where, my work is getting picked apart, and it's like, okay, so how can I help you to change your outlook on what is going on here? And sometimes it's costed me a little bit to have to go the extra mile to please somebody, and going outside of the scope of work of what the contract is to kind of uh, satisfy that customer. And I think that building boundaries for myself and for between myself and clients have helped me a lot, um, especially on site when some words are being thrown at me and I'm kind of have to bite my tongue. And so um, here's our friend here, Cosmo. I have a cat and he wants
Oh
to be
yeah,
a part of
come here, buddy. Cosmo,
yeah
does he
me
does he hunt? Can he get a couple of the rats that are stuck in my house?
So he's an indoor cat, but we rescued him when he was about 6 weeks old, and he just turned 2. And we named him Cosmo Kramer because we're huge fans of Seinfeld. My wife and I watched all 9 seasons, and when we got him, we were trying to figure out a name for him. And one day he just came running into the room and skid on all 4 paws, and we're like, "Oh, that's Cosmo right there, like Cosmo Kramer."
That's so great. So, I mean, you're only a couple weeks into. Oh, look at him. Or is it her?
No, it's a he.
Oh
Yeah.
my
Oh,
God. Oh, he's like, no, camera shot.
yep.
Absolutely. Oh, Cosmo. Wow, he is fuzzy. What kind of cat is he?
Yeah. Yeah, he's a long-haired domestic. Um, he must have some Maine Coon in him because when we first got him, he was so fluffy and had the ears and the blue eyes were like, wow, he looks like a rag doll. But as he started growing up, his eyes turned yellow, and he's kind of just got that big mane, and the ears and the face. he has some Maine Coon in him. I'm not sure, um, other than that, what he is other than a long-haired domestic, but he's the coolest cat.
He is very handsome. He's like, I love it. Like you said, the mane is very like, I love that.
Yeah, we just got to maintain his coat. We got to give him certain diet and make sure he gets combed off and stuff like that. But
Totally. Yeah. So you're a couple weeks into marriage, and I'm gonna tie it to kind of you said someone who wants to get into a trade, needs to show commitment. Like that's sort of, and I think that if you want to build roots and community, I think that is sort of the key, and that's that internal commitment. So it's really cool that when when someone decides to get sober, there's also that you make a commitment. So it starts with the self. And then once you've committed to yourself, and a certain value set, you can start to apply that to the other relationships that you make. And so in this case, your wife, and then as you move on, it's your business, like to the ethics of what you're doing, and then these contracts with clients. So, and it all kind of comes from that commitment to self. I like to hear from you about just, I guess, what generally commitment in a relationship means. And I'm just particularly interested. I was talking to my husband about this, and he's interested in teaching like a class for like preteen or young men, kind of like a mix between boxing and some of his military stuff or weightlifting, but kind of like dude stuff, like how to look someone in the eye. How do you manage aggression and confrontation when it comes to you? Things that young men and boys kind of have to deal with. And I think you are a great example of a person in our community, obviously a male. Um, and so, and it's hard for young boys or young men to find their value set. It's not something that, mass media really says, hey, like, be a family person, show commitment, keep showing up. So I don't know how does it benefit a young person to show commitment, and what does it mean for a young man to show it and to live that?
yeah, so unfortunately for men, I feel like it takes the boys a lot longer to grow up than it does for the women. Um, but yeah, it means everything. And going back to the my relationship with my wife, I think that the what has held us together for so long and so well is that it does take a commitment to make things work. It does when things get hard, there is no walking away. For us to come as far as we did over the last 3 years, it took a lot of hard conversations. It took a lot of long talks. It took a lot of self-appraisal and kind of looking at myself and saying, like, where am I showing up here? Like, how am I the one that is could do better or could change to make help us get beyond this and heal from this? And I think that for me, I would say that that honest self-assessment has to be done every day because I I can easily paint myself to be a victim, or I can easily say like I am justified in behaving this way, and so to be able to look somebody else in the eyes and know that you're doing your part the best you can to be a stand-up man and to be somebody that the community or younger people can look up to and say that's somebody that I respect or somebody that I admire or somebody that I strive to be like. I think that's like a huge honor, for me to kind of be accountable to myself, which in return kind of has a massive impact on other people. Especially my wife. Like sometimes an apology goes such a long way, and I will resist that for so long. And it's like why? Like how come I can't just own up to where I'm falling short? And it's a pride thing as a male. Like you don't ever want to be the one that's wrong. And I think that's like a human nature thing. So it just kind of makes life a lot easier when you can take a look in the mirror and say, this is how I am showing up, and this is how things are turning out bad is because of this behavior that I'm doing. And, I got to make a correction. I owe an apology, whatever it may be. So,
Mm. And do you feel that that is a process that like feels better than the opposite? Like, you know, coming from a place of ego, right? It can feel good sometimes. You ruminate like, oh, like, and I've got my own perspectives as like a female. Like, I think, and maybe other women feel the same way. But I know at least in my own marriage dynamic, it's not always saying what you mean. It's like the class. I think it's a little bit of a classic female thing where it's like I'm not being very direct, but there's a vibe happening, and should someone really have to play detective to understand what's up? And to not, so there's this like transparency and openness. And I do think that, and it applies to relationships and business where, has a dynamic between man and woman or whatever it is. Have we created a sense of security where honesty can happen? And I do feel, and maybe I'm a bit traditional sometimes in kind of relationship dynamics, where it's, I think if a man is grounded, it's easier for a woman to kind of do her part in the communicating. So it really is both people having to sort of do their part to make it successful. And it's wild to me, the phenomena that if there's a functioning relationship inner unit, how that really does trickle out to like everywhere else you might go.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
um do you feel, you know that after, do you feel any different like after marriage? Is there something that feels like it's a bit more settled than it was before?
So I'll tell you one thing. The last year and a half, so I proposed to Michaela on the Maid of the Mist in Niagara Falls. So we had taken a trip, and I had just very last minute went and bought a ring and went to her dad's house and said, "I'm going to propose to your daughter. We've been dating for a year and a half," and so leading up to that point, our relationship was great. We had already overcome some huge boundaries and huge hurdles and stuff. And then so for the last 18 months, from getting engaged to the wedding planning, I mean, for 18 months we worked so hard. Like she's in um, mental health care. And so she was doing like 64-hour work weeks and doing a ton of overtime and, doing side jobs and stuff like doing in-home care for other. And me, I was doing my 7 days a week sometimes, putting away like as much money as I possibly could. So I think the 18 months of wedding planning and the only time that we got to sit down together and really hang out, it was discussing the wedding. Now that that's behind us, I mean, since we've been married, we've like gone to a concert, we've done a ton of a ton of dinner dates, and like so over the last couple of weeks of like, wow, that's behind us. It was the best day of our lives. Like we wanted to kind of keep the momentum going of let's not let things, because I hear a lot of like post wedding depression happening with a lot of couples, because they kind of just go back into their day to day routines, week to week. And so we have a honeymoon planned, but it's not until next year. We planned a trip to Hawaii, and it's booked for May, late May. But between the wedding and then, we wanted to make sure like we're still enjoying each other's company, and we're still doing date nights, and we're still doing the things that we love to do together. Um, because when we first started dating, like once a month we would go to a concert or music festival, or have some kind of a dinner date or go to the movies. And like our relationship built on time spent like that. So for us to have the wedding planning portion behind us and not have to work so hard and not have to stay up late planning things, and that's a huge relief. And the wedding was beautiful, and now it's like, okay, now we can kind of settle in into being newlyweds and enjoy our time together. So it's
That
been,
is that is so beautiful. I think that is like, so when I decided to move back to Rhode Island, Dan and I, my husband now, we were living in Michigan, and it was kind of in the midst of like COVID stuff, and I was on this trajectory to more get like, finish law school and try to be like high power attorney. And he and I had sidebar conversations like, oh, maybe like you'll be more the stay at home dad. He had done 14 years in the military, and I was like, it's my turn, like I'm gonna, um, you know, and then I sort of, I don't know, with COVID stuff, I was like, what actually matters? Like, what are the values here? And it kind of coincided with like deciding like no alcohol, like let's do a sobriety thing, like bring it all back to tangible basics. Um, and deciding to make a commitment to like getting roots into the ground. I had lived a lot as kind of a tumbleweed, moving from place to place, always very ambitious, but not quite settled in the execution of it, trying a lot of things. And I've always loved like law and music and people who were talented or mechanically inclined, people who got really deep into a skill. I always had a lot of respect for, because I in many ways felt like a Jill of all trades and master of none.
yeah,
um, but I knew that the one thing, I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I knew that I wanted to plant a seed and grow the roots and be like, you don't know what it feels like to be a big tree unless you settle down. And
yeah,
it's amazing how much like, light and growth there can be if you're not zipping all around. And you do
yes.
decide to commit. So I think it's beautiful because you've obviously have planted seeds, and you're married and you've got the business. So your tree is thriving.
Yeah. Yeah, between the marriage and the business, and just the personal relationships that I've made with some of the friends that I've made out here. I don't just give anybody access to me. I'm very selective with the type of people that I have in my circle, and I think that that has really helped me grow. Because in the past, I've had people that weren't always the best influence, didn't always have my best interest at heart, and I can pick up and I can sense those type of people, and I just really have no space in my realm for anybody or anything like that. So, um, yeah, I am so
Hmm.
happy with where my life is, and how things have played out, especially over the last 5 years. I mean, I can't say it enough. Just so fortunate, so blessed, so lucky to be able to say that, and to have the life that I have today. I'm just very grateful for it.
That's amazing. I love that. Good vibes are good vibes, and they're
Yes,
contagious, which is the best part. So I
indeed.
think the last question I sort of want to ask is like where to from now, um do you have growth plans for just in time home improvement? I was joking that some like millionaire should buy you guys and Jake and Burke and turn you into like Rhode Island's mega team. But um jokes aside, where do you see the business in 5, 10 years? Like, what are you looking to build with this? Or are you still kind of just navigating the seas?
So I think my first year kind of showed me a lot of what I'm capable of. Um, because I kind of walked into it saying like, well, if I make like 40 or 50 grand, like I'll be happy. I don't want to be a millionaire. I don't want to have this massive corporation and my expectations were met like tenfold. And I was like, wow, this is pretty amazing. Like for the first year, I'm a business with no debt. Like I haven't had to open up any credit line. I haven't had to, borrow from anybody to say, hey, like I'm in a jam, help me out. Um, so I think my first year was kind of just seeing what can happen. And I think for this upcoming year, I would say that over the next few years, I just want to continue education. Like for specifically, let's just say, for bathroom remodels, like I recently took a workshop and I took me and a couple of my guys to this workshop to learn how to properly waterproof a bathroom for ADA restrooms. So like people who are in a wheelchair, I want to make sure that I'm starting to expand on different things and different certifications and like which direction do I want to go in? I'm not sure. Maybe more kitchens next year because I've done about 3 dozen bathrooms and you do enough bathrooms and it's like, can I get a kitchen here? you know. um, so but I think for the first year it was kind of just building relationship with vendors, with different trade partners, um, and kind of just expanding like my equipment. And I recently just got a new truck, so now I have different capabilities for hauling bigger stuff. And so I think year two, I'm kind of just going to take it in stride, continue to do what I've been doing. And when new challenges arise, like there's always a solution out there for me, whether it's through some kind of training or workshop, or just talking to another contractor that I'm close with and saying, hey, I'm in this situation, or I've come across this job, like I need some direction here. And you know I've been very lucky to have some of my peers say, here, I'll help you out. And so that's awesome. Not a lot of people can say that. There's some contractors out there that are just looking for the next buck and not really interested in their warranty and stuff like that. And I take pride in the fact that I'm gonna look through the details, and I take pride in the fact that, like, here's the reason why you should hire me. I'm not the cheapest, but it's for a reason. I'm not the most expensive because I'm not going to take advantage of you. I'm middle of the road guy, and I'm going to make sure that you're satisfied um, with the final product. So, I'm so happy with where the business has gone over the last year, and the sky's the limit for the next year, next few years to come.
I love that. You've really embraced a growth mindset. And the beautiful thing about being a relatively small business is you can be very adaptable and make shifts and pivots as they arise, or you can make that investment in time or money into learning and evolving. And I'm very excited to see. And since you're talking about kitchens, know that when when we have the money to do ours and if the stars aligned, you will be the first people we call, because ours is in sorry shape, my friend. So that one is in your future at some point, but it will probably, when it rains, it pours. It'll probably come when you've done 100 kitchens that year and are looking to do something else.
Yeah.
Well, Justin, it's been a pleasure. Justin of Just in Time Home Improvements out of Hope Valley, Rhode Island. It has been a pleasure. Thank you very much. I
Thank
very,
you
very
for
much
having
appreciate your time tonight.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Awesome. Have a great night. And we're sending our love to Michaela.
Yes.
And oh wait, and Cosmo.
And Cosmo.
Yes, can't
Here
forget
he is
Cosmo.
right now. All
Awesome.
right.
Have a great night. Bye now.